All right, so today, we have with us Steve Owens. Uh, y'all all know Steve. Steve's been a Rotarian for as long as I can remember. He's volunteered in just about each position as director. Right now, he's on our board, and we really appreciate all he does for us. And he's a banker. And he's been a banker for, I don't know, he started out with me. I guess I was one of his clients at the very beginning, and he worked for different banks, and was recently he left one of his banks that he'd worked for a while, and went to Hometown Bank, and has been doing very well there, and we're happy for him. He has a beautiful wife, Carrie, a very lovely woman he's been married to. And I believe you have one son right now, and maybe more. I haven't kept up with you, but I know you have one son. And but he has a lot of knowledge in what's going on with the banking world right now about getting loans. And one of the things that I was amazed at is that, small businesses like my business, we've been shut down, and I've been paying people, out of my own pocket to keep them going. And I have a lot of rent going on and a lot of things like that, bills, utilities and so forth, phones, and I can afford it kind of, but, I'm getting low, uh, just like you would expect after a month or so. You don't have, but, there's ways to get reimbursed that Steve's going to let us know about that don't require payback. If you got a small business and you want to get a loan, he's the guy to talk to, and he has the ability in his bank to help. So Steve, would you please give us some information about what you're doing with your bank and how you can help us?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. First of all, I don't claim to have all the answers. It's been a moving target. The government's changed a lot of the rules and guidelines all along the way. That's why a lot of banks are really having problems with it. But to answer your question earlier, you mentioned you thought I had one son. I have two sons, a daughter, and 5 grandkids.
Wow. Okay.
So, all right. Yeah, but thanks for asking. And thanks for asking me to speak about this PPP program. Again, I don't know everything about it. I just know enough to be dangerous. But PPP stands for Payroll Protection Plan. As you know, the government approved $349 billion to be funded for businesses. This is primarily, though, for the employees of the companies, so the employees can keep paying their bills and not rely on unemployment. So a lot of business owners had the wrong idea about the money. It's really for the employees more than it is for that company, because we want to keep as many people out of unemployment as we can. So to qualify for this loan, it's not based on the company's ability to repay the debt, but instead it's based on the company's monthly average salary expense. So 100% of the loan is guaranteed by the government to the bank. That's kind of unusual for us, because we're used to approving companies for loans based on their ability to repay the debt. But instead, now we're basing it on their average salary expense. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But most banks started taking these applications, but then very quickly became overwhelmed due to the number of applications and the many changing guidelines from the government. As a result, banks started taking applications from their existing customers, which is in an effort to take care of their existing customers first. It makes sense, because if a bank has customers that bank with them and they're doing all these other loans for companies that don't even bank with us, it's not fair to our existing customers. And we're not the only bank that, I guess, has that attitude, if you will. I mean, it's pretty much across the board. All banks are like that. So there is an application, and my bank, Hometown Bank, also provided a worksheet to the companies to help them compute the amount of monies they qualify for. as well as how they plan to spend these monies the following 8 weeks from when the monies are funded. So we'll talk about it more in a minute, but the monies have to be spent over the next 8 weeks. Can y'all still hear me okay? See me?
Yes, sound good.
Okay. So some of the primary guidelines are as follows. Monies can be used for not only the employee's salaries, but mortgage, rent, and utilities as well. The majority, at least 75% of the monies, must be used for employees' salaries. So you've got to use at least 75% of that money for your employees' salaries and benefits. Now, when applying, companies must also prove what their salary expense was in 2019. And the easiest way to do that is if we get their Form 940 or their W-3, it shows us how much their annual salary expense was, and we just divide that by 12 and get the average. But also the companies must provide W-2s to show how much the individual employees made, because if you have an employee that made more than $100,000, let's say someone made 150 in salary, not benefits, but salary. They made 150. 50 would need to be subtracted off because it's limited to 100,000. So then also the money's can be used for utilities, and if so, if you're planning on using some of the monies for utilities, then you have to provide your last month's utility bills. And then if the money's going to be used for rents, you've got to provide your lease so we can verify how much you're paying in rent. And then if the monies are used for interest expense, like on a mortgage, if you own your own building, the companies must provide the last month's interest statement so we can verify. We just have to verify where the money's going. You notice we're not talking about, we don't need your tax returns. We don't need your financial statements. We don't need your personal financial statements. This is all about salaries, and which is completely different than what we're used to. So when an application is completed with all the documentation, the application is put into the SBA portal. And once the SBA provides a guarantee number, the bank will issue loan documents to the customer to sign. And what we did is we emailed all the documents to customers, and they docu-signed and sent them back. So once they're signed, the bank will fund the monies into the customer's account. So all that sounds easy. Well, when the government first started talking about this funding program, a lot of the banks weren't really prepared, but I got to give it to our bank president and our chief credit officer. They're very proactive and started learning as much as they could so we as a bank would be ready. And then on April 2nd, April 3rd, our lenders, note department, we started working nonstop on these PPP loans. Because applications were coming in like flowing water, man. It just every time, the phone wouldn't stop ringing, people asking questions, emailing applications. It was just crazy. Bankers aren't supposed to work that hard, but we worked really hard. Then about 23 of us, the lenders, the note department, led by our bank president and chief credit officer, we worked all day the following Saturday and Sunday, and then again all day the next Saturday. Of course, the next day was Easter, so we did take Easter off, but we're back at it Monday. So we worked basically 2 straight weeks on all these PPP applications, and we actually put all other loan requests on the side so we could just work on this PPP loan request, because that was what was most important, helping these small companies survive. Banks weren't required to make these loans, but we felt that it was our patriotic duty, that we needed to help. We needed to do it for our customers. So we worked as a team. We all helped each other. When one lender was at a stopping point with his or her loans, he or she would help another lender finish up on theirs, just so we could get them all done. This was on a weekend. If I was done at, say, 11 or 12, I wasn't going to leave before anyone else left. We were all there till 5, 6 o'clock on both Saturday and Sunday, getting all these loans done. So at this point, our bank has approved 432 applications, and we funded over $48 million in loans. And as I mentioned, initially the government had approved $349 billion for funding, but all that's been depleted. Now we're just waiting on them to approve more. And actually, I've heard that it's going to be as much as $450 billion. We'll just keep our fingers crossed. We still have pending applications just waiting on the government to approve funding. Now, Mike, what you were talking about earlier, will the monies be forgiven? And the answer is yes, if companies can prove the use of funds were used the following 8 weeks as they were supposed to be used. Canceled checks is my best guess. It's kind of up in the air right now. I'm not really sure how involved the bank is going to have to be on that end, or if the customer is going to have to report to the SBA. My guess is that it'll go through the bank, and we'll have to verify that all the monies were spent like they're supposed to be spent, and at least 75% of it was spent on salaries. And if the funds weren't used per the guidelines, the balance will be put on a 2-year note at a 1% interest rate, which still is not a bad deal. 1% interest, that's like free money. And it's important to know that most banks, if not all, of the community bank's customers they're small business. It's also important to know the value of being a big fish in a small pond, because if you're a small fish in a big pond, that would be the bank, then you may get overlooked. So you see, we've received many phone calls from non-customers that bank with large banks that haven't been able to talk to anyone at their bank. And this is really hard for us to take. I mean, customers are calling us, or prospects are calling us basically, and they haven't been able to get in touch with their bank, but we have so much going on, we can't take anymore at this point. We'll see how that changes along the way. But I just want to tell you all that it's very important to bank with a community bank, whether it's Hometown Bank or any other community bank. Just pick one, and remember to have a relationship with your bank officer, because your relationship is with the bank officer more so than it is the bank. And in closing, I encourage you and any other small business owner to seriously consider working with a community bank. It's mutually beneficial to our surrounding county and community success. So that's all I have to say about it. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to field them. I don't make any promises though.
Steve, we have a chat, a group chat that we ask all the participants if they have questions to write those questions out for you. So if you go to your chat and open that Zoom group chat, you'll see some some questions. Okay,
I'm looking for that chat. I don't see it. Hang on, here comes my wife. She's going to teach me. Okay.
I knew she was the brains of the outfit.
She is. Here, okay. Thanks, Adrian. Okay, that's not me. Will we pay taxes on the money? No, you won't pay taxes on the money. How long did the money last on the first go around? Basically a week and a half. I don't think it went any longer than 2 weeks. Will the small business be more favored this go around? I'm not sure I understand that question, but the small business is favored and was favored on the first go around. We can only work as fast as customers get us the information. There are customers that applied early on with me, and I'm sad to say that there are 3 of them that haven't completed the applications, haven't given me what I need to get them approved and get them in the portal. So now they're going to have to wait for that second funding. So I guess to answer that question, it's just, the faster you get the information to the bank, the better off we are. What banks do you recommend in the Clear Lake area? Hometown Bank.
That's easy.
Yeah. Prosperity's doing them. Texas Citizens doing them. Most banks are doing them, but I would just pick a small bank. How much of the funds do you get out of the loan? Okay, good question. So the banks up to $350,000, a bank earns 5% fee on that loan. The loans between 350 and 2 million, we earn 3%, and then anything over 2 million, we earn 1%. So the customers don't pay, the government pays. Okay, what's the best way to keep business open for rent fees? Is the best way to keep business open for rent fees, insurance taxes, for other operating expenses. Different process. I don't know if there's a better process, unless you already have a relationship with a bank. You can call the bank about possibly just getting a traditional line of credit or something like that. What is the maximum loan amount? I believe it's 10 million. We had 2 loans at our bank that were about 3 million each. I have a customer that is publicly traded, and he went through another bank. He has several banks. He went through another bank and he got the $10 million. Curious, did you have churches and other nonprofits apply for? Yes, I did. The church I go to, I did a loan for them. And then I am a director of Anchor Point, and it's a pro-life organization, and I was able to get them approved as well. Another question: do you have to have an account with the bank to apply? Unfortunately, that's the way it is now, pretty much with all banks. Hopefully that'll change as more funding is approved, but at this point, you have to go to your bank. How do you feel about the stability of banks as the trickle down of businesses not being able to meet their loan obligations going forward? The banks are very stable. These loans are 100% guaranteed, so I'm not really concerned about that. But if I understand your question right, Scott, you're asking about the bank's ability as to trickle down from the business not being able to meet their loan obligations. And so that is a concern. If all our customers go out of business, it's going to have an effect on us, definitely. We will step in there and work with them, do what we can do to help them stay alive. It's in the best interest of all of us. Let's see. If you don't use the money for payroll, does default into a loan? Okay, I think that your question is, if the money's not used like it's supposed to be used, then yes, it converts to a 2-year loan at a 1% interest rate. And someone wrote, is there any restrictions on the use of the money? Yes, it's for 75% of what you qualify for has to be used for salary expense, and then the rest for rent, mortgage interest, or utilities. And I think that's all the questions I have right now. I hope I answered everyone's questions. Again, I don't know everything about this, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Steve, we appreciate that. Does anybody have any more questions they would like to ask? Please go to your Zoom chat and write those down. But right now we're early if we leave.
Mike, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
The first 6 months after the initial 8 weeks that the money's supposed to be spent, it's interest only, and then it would convert to a 2-year loan.
Okay, so and what you said to us too is that we have to spend that money within the first 8 weeks.
That's correct.
And the salary is based on our monthly salary. So for example, if someone made 20,000 a month, that means they would get 2 times that.
If the company's average monthly salary expense was 20,000, then they would qualify for that times 2.5.
Okay.
Up to that'd be the maximum loan they could get.
Right. And then we could also include rent, uh, bills, and other
Right.
things like that.
Because 2.5 times, so basically 2 times would be the salaries, and the other half go toward the other expenses like rent, utilities, and things like that.
Yeah.
When you say 2.5 times.
See, I heard that a lot of the companies, the really big ones, were the ones that were getting the lion's share of all the money, and that it did not go out to very many small businesses this first time around. I mean, you got these huge corporations out there, and they're sucking up most of the money, and the smaller businesses aren't getting the money. And then I heard on the news also that this time they're going to try to resolve that. That's why I asked that question. And then I hear a lot of people are going to multiple banks and getting these loans. You know, I heard a contractor went to 10 different banks and got 10 different loans. So is there a lot of corruption going on out there?
Well, that's not true. I mean, they're not supposed to be able to go to more than one bank. And I'm not sure that it's really true about the big companies getting most of the money first. I think it's just first come, first serve. So whoever got their application completed to where the bank could verify everything, then it could get into a portal, and you're in line once you're in portal. Just waiting on an SBA guarantee number so we can assign to your loan, spit you out documents, you DocuSign them, send them back, and we fund the money. So it's just a matter of getting your information together so we can complete the application, which is really not a very difficult process. It's about a 2-page application, just answers yes and no, things like that, and then get your W-3 or 940 to us, and then W-2s, and
Yeah.
then utility bills and stuff like that, lease.
What happens, say that, for example, I was to turn on in to you or whoever my banker is, whatever, tomorrow, and it was approved. What percentage of a chance would I have getting the loan?
Again, well, if they approve more funding, it's a real
Right.
good, it's a real good
Okay.
chance. And if it's a completed application, because once I get a completed application, I can approve it that day. I just had to make sure everything is there and it makes sense. And I'm going to recalculate everything you've calculated, make sure it's all done properly. And once I've done all that, and it'll be that same day, I'll get you approved, and then it'll go into the SBA portal, so we can get a number and get loan docs sent out.
Yeah, you mentioned that you send your customers kind of a way to do it, forms to help them fill it out. Did you say that earlier?
Yeah, so there's an application, and my bank also made a worksheet that helps the customer figure how much the maximum loan is that they qualify for, and it also helps them outline how those monies are going to be used.
Yeah.
And then based on that, we say, okay, well, you're going to use some for utilities. I need your last month's utility bill. Okay, you're going to be using it for rent. I need a copy of your lease, because I got to make sure that if you put that you're going to spend $10,000 on rent, I need to make sure that how much your rent really is.
Yeah.
So that you're not scamming or whatever.
Yeah. Say that you have outstanding debt. Your business has outstanding credit card debt. Can you use that money to help pay that debt off?
No, it's only for salaries, utilities, mortgage interest, or rent.
Is there a way that we can, that you could you send maybe our club that, those forms that you help your customers with, or is that something that is, not able to share?
I'm sure I can. I can do that. Where would I send those to?
Probably you send them to Delia. or myself, and then we could do a blast out to our members. And we take all the stuff off of it and everything. And just, a lot of us, go in there and it's kind of frustrating first time you fill something out, even though it's simple. It would be nice.
Yeah, and like this poor lady called me Friday, and she has I think a very successful business based on what she told me, and she's kicking herself for banking with a big bank because she hasn't been able to get in touch with anyone. She's called and I've messaged, no one to call her back, and that's an example of being a small fish in a big pond. If she had banked with us or a community bank, period, she would have been treated a lot differently.
Are you going to treat all your Rotarian friends very nice at your bank?
I love all. I'll do what I can do to help, man.
With kid gloves,
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Steve, for being here today. And you really enlightened me because I thought it was a very hard process. I thought there was a bunch of stuff I had to do, like getting a loan for real. But we do, if this is available, I'd like for everyone to try to take advantage of it while we can to help your firms out and your employees out. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then there's other things too, like these SBA loans. Do y'all doing the SBA loans too? And if you do an SBA loan, is it like a 4% interest or what?
SBA loan, we don't do the traditional SBA loans at Hometown Bank. Some banks do. They're kind of a laborious process, but the rate is higher on a regular SBA loan, and like a 7A loan is going to be prime plus one floating.
Yeah.
And so right now that'd be like 4.5%. I think prime is 3.5 or 3.25. So it'd be a 4.25% rate, but it changes every quarter. If the prime changes, the rate will change, and they'll be adjusted each quarter end.
Yeah. And so what about the disaster relief fund that you can, I think there's 3 things you can apply for. You can apply for the PPP, you can apply for the SBA, small business loan, and you can apply for the disaster relief fund. So do you have anything to offer about the disaster relief fund?
Are you talking about the EIDL loan, the $10,000 grant? I think that's what you're talking about there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can't have both. If you get the grant, then the EIDL grant, that's EIDL, is going to come off of the amount of your PPP loan.
I see.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a grant, but you can't have both. And disaster relief, I mean, this is the only loan that we're participating with is a PPP, which I believe is basically the disaster relief.
Okay.
It's payroll protection.
I see.
But other banks do traditional SBA loans, but that would take too long to get anyone help. I mean, what they need is a PPP loan because it's a faster process. I mean, we did over $48 million in 2 weeks. So it takes way longer than that to do a $100,000 SBA loan.
It takes about 2 or 3 months to do something like that. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. So,
well, again, we appreciate your, sharing all this information with us, and